Welcome to Ubon Ratchathani and the Office of International Relations here as we present hot tips for how to take the International English Language Testing System exam and perform better than you might have without awareness of many tips taken from experts around the internet as we present them here. Of course, the first obvious thing, if your headphone is not working, you'll want to raise your hand for an evaluator to come and help you. Of course, you're going to want to listen very attentively and focus on reading the answers before the audio begins, write within the word limits, and use the amount of words they tell you you must use. Finally, write in all capital letters so that your answers are legible. If they're not legible, they will not be accepted as correct. And then save some time for revision and proofreading before you submit your test. We'll say this a few times. Read the questions first so that you know what you're going to be listening for in the audio. We'll have some samples of audio from the real exam shortly. So be sure to listen to the entire question rather than just keywords, and don't be taking notes on a writing pad at all. Just focus on listening with the question in mind. The test lasts for 30 minutes. You will hear 4 recordings, and the questions will get more difficult as you progress throughout the test. You can see here for a band 7, which is excellent and will get you into the most prestigious universities, you'll want to get 30 out of 40 questions correct on this section of the exam. And you will find they get progressively more difficult as you go through this section. Let's take a look at the description for band 7. In band 7, we can see has an operational command of the language with occasional inaccuracies, inappropriate usage and misunderstandings in some cases, understands detailed reasoning, and generally handles complex language well. So that's what you're aiming for. So the recordings you're going to listen to are going to be in crisp and clear English, not quite the same as you will find in a movie or a television show. And you're going to want to read ahead. We'll say this again. Understand the questions that are coming so that you're not caught in your only chance to listen to the audio trying to figure out what you're supposed to listen for. And of course, listen to more English every day. For myself, Pom rien pu pasatai jak duna. Pom an pasa ankrit le dayin pasatai la dikwa tukwan. Pom put dikwa. Since both your speaking and listening exams will both be given in a variety of English accents, please feel most welcome to enroll in our online English course at the address here, and there you will find many things of great value to you, among them a collection of English dialects and idioms, so you can hear a variety of Australian or Canadian or American or British English so that you have a sense as to how they differ. In this online course as well, there are many opportunities for you to be speaking and listening to English along with some basic grammar you're going to want to have. So feel welcome, and if you enroll and engage the work, we will assess it here at International Relations. So the paper-based test will provide you with an answer sheet, and you'll have 10 minutes at the end of the 30 minutes listening exam to transfer your answers to that answer sheet. You can eliminate answers as you go. With the computer-based test, you'll only have 2 minutes to listen, but you will have earphones to listen clearly, and the paper-based test may be offered through a loudspeaker. So I'll say this a few times, read the questions ahead so you know what you're listening for. And as soon as that test opens, read all the questions. So listen to the whole question, but also focus on keywords and have in mind the next question as you're answering your first question. Another thing to keep in mind is the concept of prediction. Prediction allows you to focus your brain on what you need to hear, but also then to predict. In this example, for example, Sean Rogers, room number blank, we're going to hear a number and a time, and that allows us to focus on those two items, a number and a time. And watch out for word indicators, such as however, but, then, finally, and these also help you anticipate what the speaker is going to say. And here are some more examples. Therefore, hence, thus, for these reasons, which implies that, and so forth. Since no points are deducted for taking a guess, then you should take a guess on this test if you really don't know the answer. Odds are, as it was explained to me in my own test-taking days, if you have to guess towards the end of the options. If there are 4, guess between number 3 and 4. Odds are your answer is more likely to be correct if you're guessing. So on the listening part of this exam, you're going to hear the first 2 recordings, and these will be placed in an everyday context. A coffee shop, with friends, at home with the family. The last 2 recordings will deal with situations that focus on educational or training aspects of life. In recordings 1 and 3, you'll hear a conversation between 2 or more speakers, and in conversations 2 and 4, you'll be listening to a monologue. Again, a variety of accents may appear in the listening test, so dig around and get a sense of how Australian English is different from British or American English. So here is a sample question, and we'll have a chance to look in detail at some more of these coming up. So there will be 4 options in each question, and the speakers will speak about these in the recording. Needless to say, you're going to want to be grammatically correct and match your singular and plural pronouns and their verbs and all of this. And of course, again, remember, you may have different accents speaking. And of course, when you're listening to English, you may see zeros pronounced as O in a phone number. And beware of apartment numbers like 16B we have here. And if you choose either American or British spellings, you're just fine, but don't mix them up. Stick with one or the other. Again, we'll look in detail at questions, but you'll find a variety, or you may get a map or a diagram to analyze in English. So in section 1, you're going to be listening to people having a conversation. They may be discussing a variety of topics, so listen carefully. So here's a sample from section 1. You can see in the question it asks for no more than 3 words or a number for each option. Now you'll just be listening, but in our particular example here, you can see a tape script of what the 2 people will have been talking about, as well as the answers to this test. So take some time to look over this moment. Please pause YouTube as you like and take a look at the individual questions carefully.
You will hear a telephone conversation between a customer and an agent at a company which ships large boxes overseas.
Good morning, Packham's shipping agents. Can I help you?
Oh yes, I'm ringing to make inquiries about sending a large box, a container back home to Kenya from the UK.
Yes, of course. Would you like me to try and find some quotations for you?
Yes, that'd be great. Thank you.
Well, first of all, I need a few details from you.
Fine.
Can I take your name?
It's Jacob Mkere.
Can you spell your surname, please?
Yes, it's Mkere.
Is that M for mother?
Yes.
Thank you. And you say that you will be sending the box to Kenya.
That's right.
And where would you like the box picked up from?
From college, if possible.
Yes, of course. I'll take down the address now.
It's Westall College.
Is that Westall?
Yes, college.
Westall College. And where's that?
It's Downlands Road in Bristol.
Oh, yes, I know it. And the postcode?
It's BS8 9PU.
Right. And I need to know the size.
Yes, I've measured it carefully and it's 1.5 metres long,
Right.
0.75 metres wide,
Okay.
and it's 0.5 metres high or deep.
Great. So I'll calculate the volume in a moment and get some quotes for that. But first, can you tell me, very generally, what will be in the box?
Yes, there's mostly clothes
Okay.
and there's some books.
Okay, good. Anything else?
Yes, there's also some toys.
Okay, and what is the total value, do you think, of the contents?
Well, the main costs are the clothes and the books. They'll be about £1,500. But then the toys are about another 200. So I'd put down £1,700.
So try to contextualize or get a sense of the situation of the dialogue. You may hear it introduced, now you will hear a dialogue, or now you will hear a lecture. So keep that in mind. It will help you answer the questions. Of course, you can see the answers to this particular one on this slide also. Your second section will be a monologue. One person will be speaking, and you'll need to listen very carefully. But this will again be about an everyday context, such as school or home or work. So here's a sample from section 2. You will have heard a monologue on a topic, in this case, the National Arts Center. And you'll be answering questions about what happens at what particular time of day.
Now listen carefully and answer questions 11 to 16.
Hello, and welcome to Focus on the Arts. I'm your host, Dave Green, and this is your very own local radio programme. Every Friday evening, we put the spotlight on different arts and culture facilities and look at the shows and events that are on offer in the coming week. And today, the focus is on the National Arts Centre. Now, if you don't already know it yourself, I'm sure you've all heard of it. It's famous throughout the world as one of the major venues for classical music. But did you know that it's actually much more than just a place to hear concerts? The centre itself is a huge complex that caters for a great range of arts. Under a single roof, it houses concert rooms, theatres, cinemas, art galleries, and a wonderful public library, as well as service facilities including 3 restaurants and a bookshop. So, at any one time, the choice of entertainment there is simply enormous. So, how did they manage to build such a big arts complex right in the heart of the city? Well, the area was completely destroyed by bombs during the war in 1940. So the opportunity was taken to create a cultural centre that would be what they called the city's gift to the nation. Of course, it took a while for such a big project to get started, but it was planned in the 60s, built in the 70s, and eventually opened to the public in 1983. Ever since then, it has proved to be a great success. It's not privately owned, like many arts centres, but is still in public hands. It's run by the City Council. Both our National Symphony Orchestra and National Theatre Company were involved in the planning of the project, and they're now based there, giving regular performances every week. And as the centre is open 363 days of the year, There are plenty of performances to choose from.
Before you hear the rest of the broadcast, you have some time to look at questions 17 to 20 on page 5.
So do take advantage of this time they give you in the exam to read and know very well those questions.
Now listen and answer questions 17 to 20.
So, to give you some idea of what's on, and to help you choose from the many possibilities, we've made a selection of the star attractions. If you're interested in classical music, then we recommend you go along to the National on either Monday or Tuesday evening at 7:30 for a spectacular production of the Magic Flute, probably the most popular of all Mozart's operas. It's in the Garden Hall, and tickets start at only £8, but you'll have to be early if you want to get them that cheap. And remember, it's only on for those 2 evenings. For those more interested in the cinema, you might like to see the new Canadian film, which is showing on Wednesday evening at 8 p.m. in Cinema 2. And that's called 3 Lives. It's had fantastic reviews, and tickets cost just £4.50, which is a reduction on the usual price of £5.50. So it's really good value, especially for such a great movie. But you can see the centre's main attraction at the weekend, because on Saturday and Sunday, 11 a.m. to 10 p.m, they're showing a wonderful new exhibition that hasn't been seen anywhere else in Europe yet. It's a collection of Chinese art called Faces of China. That's in Gallery 1, and it has some really fascinating paintings and sculptures by leading artists from all over China. And the good news is that it's completely free, so don't miss it. So why not go along to the National Arts Centre next week for one or all of these great events? And you can always pick up a programme and check out all the other performances and exhibitions on offer, or coming soon, on almost every day of the year. Next week, we'll be looking at the new Museum of Science.
That is the end of section 2. You now have half a minute to check your answers.
And you may not have noticed, but she has an Australian accent while our first speaker had a British accent.
Now turn to section 3 on page 6.
And so now you know about how this exam is going to play out. Again, the instructions are very clear. No more than 3 words and or a number for each answer. So you will have listened to something involving the City Council and the National Arts Center and classical music, and you'll want to listen carefully to how much tickets cost and when it is open and closed, and that will be the monologue for which you will listen to answer sections in question 2. So for section 3, you're going to listen to a maximum of 4 people discussing something together. Likely it will be academically oriented, something to do with students or professors or tutors. Let's listen to the sample and follow along the question and see if you can answer the question based on what you're hearing.
Good evening and welcome to the British Council. My name is John Parker and I've been asked to talk to you briefly about certain aspects of life in the UK before you actually go there. So I'm going to talk first about the best ways of making social contacts there. Now, you might be wondering why it should be necessary. After all, we meet people all the time. But when you're living in a foreign country, it can be more difficult, not just because of the language, but because customs may be different. If you're going to work in the UK, you will probably be living in private accommodation, so it won't be quite so easy to meet people. But there are still things that you can do to help yourself. First of all, you can get involved in activities in your local community. Join a group of some kind. For example, you'll probably find that there are theatre groups who might be looking for actors, set designers and so on. Or if you play an instrument, you could join music groups in your area. Or if you like the idea of finding out about local history, there'll be a group for that too. These are just examples. And the best place to get information about things like this are either the town hall or the public library. Libraries in the UK perform quite a broad range of functions nowadays. They're not just confined to lending books, although that's their main role, of course.
Some questions you find maybe fill in the gap or fill in the blank. Others may be multiple choice questions with long options. Some may ask you to choose 3 of 6 things which are true about what you heard. So here again is a sample question from section 3. You can see it's more technically oriented. Again, you'll want to write no more than 3 words and or a number for each answer. We can see that it has something to do with understanding the world's oceans. We have a context now, and then some specialized vocabulary like El Nino and global warming.
Section 3. You will hear part of a seminar entitled Understanding the World's Oceans, given by a climate scientist. First, you have some time to look at questions 21 to 25 on pages 5 and 6. Now listen carefully and answer questions 21 to 25.
Thanks to all of you for coming along today to hear about how the Robotic Float project is helping with ocean research. Well, first of all, we'll look at what a robotic float does and its use. So let's start with the device itself. It looks a bit like a cigar, and it's about 1.5 meters long. More importantly, it's full of equipment that's designed to collect data. So it can help us in building up a profile of different factors which work together within the world's oceans.
Sounds like a big project. Isn't it too big for one country to undertake?
That's quite true, but this project is a really good example of international cooperation. Over the last 5 years, scientists from 13 countries have been taking part in the project and launching floats in their area of ocean control. And next year, this number will rise to 14 when Indonesia joins the project.
That's impressive.
But let's move on to how floats work. The operational cycle goes like this. Each of the floats is dropped in the ocean from a boat at a set point and activated from a satellite. Then the float immediately sinks about 2,000 meters. That's 2 whole kilometers down in the water. It stays at this depth for about 10 days and is carried around by the currents which operate in the ocean at this level. During this time, it's possible for it to cover quite large distances, but the average is 50 kilometers.
So, what is it actually recording?
Well, at this stage, nothing. But as it rises to the surface, it collects all sorts of data. Most importantly, variations in salinity, that's salt levels, and the changes in temperature, a bit like underwater weather balloons. Then, when it gets back to the surface, all the data it's collected is beamed up to the satellite. After about 5 hours on the surface, the float automatically sinks, beginning the whole process again.
Before you hear the rest of the conversation, you have some time to look at questions 26 to 30 on page 7.
So do take this time to be looking ahead and knowing exactly what's coming up ahead. This is the length of the real pauses in the exam.
Now listen and answer questions 26 to 30.
What happens to the data?
Well, the information is transferred direct to onshore meteorological stations, like our one in Hobart, and within 4 hours the findings can be on computers, and they can be mapped and analysed.
You say you're building models of the world's ocean systems, but how are they going to be used? And more importantly, when?
Some of the data has already helped in completing projects. For example, our understanding of the underlying causes of El Nino events is being confirmed by float data. Another way we're using float data is to help us to understand the mechanics of climate change, like global warming and ozone depletion. That's part of an ongoing variability study, but the results are still a long way off. However, this is not the case with our ocean weather forecasting. Because we know from the floats what the prevailing weather conditions will be in certain parts of the ocean, we can advise the Navy on search and rescue missions. That's happening right now, and many yachtsmen owe their lives to the success of this project. In addition, the float data can help us to look at the biological implications of ocean processes.
Would that help with preserving fish stocks?
Yes, and advising governments on fisheries legislation. We're well on the way to completing a project on this. We hope it will help to bring about more sustainable fishing practices. We'll be seeing the results of that quite soon.
It sounds like the data from floats has lots of applications.
Yes, it does. It's also a powerful agricultural tool. If we were aware of what the weather would be like, say, next year, we could make sure that the farmers planted appropriate grain varieties to produce the best yield from the available rainfall.
That sounds a bit like science fiction, especially when now we can't even tell them when a drought will break.
I agree that this concept is still a long way in the future, but it will come eventually, and the float data will have made a contribution.
That is the end of section 3. You now have half a minute to check your answers.
Section 4 is going to be the most difficult. This will be a monologue on a topic from university. This one will definitely be the most challenging for you. Now let's listen to this audio clip for section 4 and see if you can follow along with answering some of these questions.
The other thing I wanted to ask you was, did you find it hard studying with the Open University?
You mean because you're studying on your own most of the time? Well, it took me a while to get used to it. I found I needed to maintain a high level of motivation because it's so different from school. There's no one saying, "Why haven't you written your assignment yet?" and that sort of thing.
Oh dear.
You'll learn it, Paul. Another thing was that I got very good at time management because I had to fit time for studying round a full-time job.
Well, I'm hoping to change to working part-time, so that'll help.
What makes it easier is that the degree is made up of modules, so you can take time off between them if you need to. It isn't like a traditional 3 or 4 year course where you've got to do the whole thing of it in one go.
Oh, that's good, because I'd like to spend 6 months traveling next year.
It's all right for some. Then, even though you're mostly studying at home, remember you've got tutors to help you, and from time to time there are summer schools. They usually last a week. They're great because you meet all the other people struggling with the same things as you. I've made some really good friends that way.
Sounds good. So how do I...
In a general way, you're going to want to listen to English every day. I myself learn Thai, and I learn by watching one show every evening for about 45 minutes to an hour. If you do this every week, as a young person, in most cases, you're going to find that really you understand everything after a few weeks of listening to a movie every day. There are also many movies on YouTube in English with Thai subtitles so that you can hear the naturally spoken English. Here, for example, is a segment from a show called Friends that is very popular with Chinese students of English. Let's listen to a moment of that so you get an idea, an easy way to improve your listening but also your speaking skills. Speak the words to yourself as you watch the show. That at least is what I try to do.
Clearly, this is a very, very hard time for you. But we provided a service, and we deserve to be paid because you ate that service. And we are not leaving here until we are paid every penny. Because you know what, lady? We're part-time caterers, and we have no place else to go.
All right. I'll get my bag.
Good.
You're going to be doing a lot, reading, writing, listening, all of these things. But if you find that you miss something in the audio, there's really not much you can do about it. So you just need to move along in the exam so that you can get credit for remaining questions. You'll only get one time to listen to the audio clip. And you're going to want to check for silly mistakes. Only correct answers are accepted, so be sure that you have spelled everything correctly and that you have grammatical agreement with subject and verb and all those other fun grammar things. So don't write your answers too quickly. Many students fall into this trap and take the first thing said that they're kind of looking for, only to find out that it's corrected in the next sentence or so. And along with checking your answers, transfer them accurately also. And don't get confused by the enumeration, that is to say, what number gets which answer. So on the paper test, you'll have 10 minutes to check for these. On the computer exam, you'll have 2 minutes to transfer or check your answers. And we'll say it again, go ahead and guess if you really don't know, because you will not be marked down for incorrect answers. So leave no blanks, and if in doubt, and there are 2 options towards the end, take the option at the end of your 4 choices or so. Odds are more likely that'll be the correct answer. Again, that's just the odds. We don't know for sure, but if we don't know for sure, be sure we take a guess. So please do examine these sources. This is where we got much of our own information as well as our own experience taking these stressful exams. And all the best of luck, and be sure to tune in to our sections on writing and reading and, importantly, speaking. So good luck.